The one thing they don't tell you about divorce is how physically debilitating it is when the decision is finally made between you and your ex. I certainly found out the hard way that it came unexpectedly, that it came out the blue, that it had been on my ex-wife's mind for 9 or 8 or several months before, and I was unaware that she wanted to make that decision, that she'd already had that plan in her head, that she'd already potentially wanted to be with another partner, that nothing had happened physically with them yet, but I didn't know that had happened. So for me, this happened almost several years ago, at the end of 2017, and I've been, I would say, happily married for 17 years. We've been together for almost 21 years, but for me it was still a shock to the system. It was still a punch to the gut. It was still physically debilitating in such a way that I was just not prepared for how it would affect me emotionally, but particularly physically. And in this video, I'm going to specifically talk about how divorce affected me physically, how it was really important that I retained some sense of physical and fitness health as I was going through the whole divorce, and how that almost to a point, I would say, saved my life. And so if you're watching this and you're going through divorce, if you're a guy, if you're a high earning filmmaker or content creator, then you're in the right place, and thanks for watching this video. And in this video, I'm going to go into the detail of what happened to me, how I overcome it, how I got beyond that, but also look at the pitfalls of what to avoid if you are going through this process yourself. So thanks for watching this video, guys. Really appreciate your time. I'm actually in the wonderful Tuscan hills in Italy with my new wife, because I'm someone that's worked in the film industry for over 30 years, producing content, making movies, producing movies, working on film marketing campaigns for many, many clients, for big clients like Disney. But I'm a divorce survivor. I've survived the death of my parents in the last several years, and I found love again, and I've found repurpose in my life. So I am in a much different place now to where I was at the end of 2017. And back to that point, wherever you are now, whatever's going on for you, whether the decision has just been made and you're in the ramifications of the first few days or the first few weeks or the first few months of divorce, the one thing that I found that people don't often talk about is the real physical impact and mental impact that it has on you. And I think for the first 5 to several days, I really didn't come to terms with what was going on. And straight away, we decided that we would not be sleeping together. Fortunately, we were in a reasonably big house, so we could sleep in separate rooms. But that first week, I would say the first fortnight of not also being physically in the same bed as my ex-wife, sleeping on your own, was just something that I'd never contemplated even thinking about. The mind was chattering away. I felt butterflies in the stomach. I felt physically sick. I won't be too ashamed and too manly to admit that I cried myself to sleep on a number of nights. And this is another thing that particularly for men, is not talked about, that if you're going through this process, that there has to be a point where you let go and you grieve and you just sob your heart out. I don't care how manly you are, whether you don't cry or you don't show your feelings or what's going on for you. However long you've been with that person, the commitments that you've had, that time that you've spent with this person, all the time that you planned into the wedding, the people that attended, the declaration that you did to friends and family, and then all the time you've spent together. And I am talking from a space of being in a marriage where we didn't have children. We had lots of animal companions throughout that time, but we didn't have any children. So I can't speak to that if you're somebody that's going through divorce and you have children. But I certainly hope that the advice that I'm going to give and the experience that I'm going to give is helpful to you as well. And I can only imagine what it entails with the children being involved as well, in terms of the grief and the upset and the planning that can go on, and speaking to the children. That is almost like a double whammy of the divorce process. But there's something about being a creative person that, for me, likes to control things, likes to be in charge, likes to feel that I know what I'm doing, that I have vision. And so when it comes to relationships, when they don't work, in a way, it feels like such a knock to the ego, such a knock to who you are as a person, that's one of the other things that it really takes time to come to terms with, that this thing hasn't worked out. Imagine that you're making a movie and you put all of this time and effort in, all of this investment, emotional, spiritual, physical, financial. Let's not avoid the big elephant in the room when it comes to divorce and marriage, that there's a huge financial question, burden, problems to be resolved, and I will talk about that more in more detail in a future video. But again, back to that point of that decision when it's made, that how it feels inside, that grief that you feel, the anger, the upset, all of that that's going on, that, you know, how are you feeling right now? What point are you at? I'd love for you, if you're brave enough and courageous enough, to put in the comments to say that you're literally in the very early stages of going through divorce with your ex-wife. I'm calling her ex-wife now. I mean, I'm not calling her, she potentially is still your wife until you legally go through the divorce. Are you a few months in, or has the divorce been like a year or 2 years ago, but you're still feeling the sense of loss and the sense of just trying to get your own purpose and mojo back to where it was potentially before? But for me, I never really returned to where it was before. It changed me in such a way that at the time I didn't know that that is how I was going to feel, and that is what was going to happen. But back to the point, and the main point of this video, I'm rambling on a little bit, so forgive me, but I hope I'm speaking to where you're at and what you're feeling. The physical part, I got very quickly that I was in, my mind was all over the place. Physically, I felt that the butterflies, the grief, trying to like deal with my life at the time, and you know how I would deal with things the next day. But I very, very quickly realized that I had to keep in peak physical condition as much as I could, because I realized if I didn't exercise regularly, if I didn't eat well, that things could go downhill very, very quickly. So for me, unconsciously, I will add, but I want to say that if you are going through this, one of the main things I would suggest to put in place is to get some physical fitness and health benefits in place for yourself, because nurturing yourself in this moment is one of the key things that you can do, because there's only so much nurturing that you can do with your ex-wife, because the fact that you've come to a decision to divorce, it almost limits the amount of support that that person can give you. That's one of the cut-off things that happens, that I found, that suddenly I didn't have that resource of this person who I could be close to, who could comfort me, that we could talk about these things. And we did to a certain extent, but straight away when the divorce comes in, that is taken away from you. And so I also lived away from my parents and my family. I had a few close friends in Glastonbury, but again, a lot of these close friends, when you're going through divorce, know both of you. So there's almost like that dynamic of friends unconsciously or very quickly take sides when they find out the news. And it was unusual for us, because at the time that it happened, my father had been very sick for 5 or 6 years, and he actually passed away. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks after we'd made that decision. So I didn't tell my mother that I was going through a divorce with my wife at the time until much later, after my dad had passed away and we'd laid him to rest. And I went and visited my mum in, I think it was April the next year in 2018, when I finally sat down with her and told her what was going on between my ex-wife and I, because I didn't want to burden her with more grief, because she was very, very fond of my ex-wife. She was very caring, she was very supportive of us both. And so again, that's something else to consider. It's when to give the news to certain siblings or family members. It's a bit different with friends. Friends tend to find out straight away, or they already know that something is going on, possibly from whoever makes the decision, whether it's the wife or the husband who makes the decision on either side. And again, this is where it's so important to take care of yourself and look out for yourself, because that support mechanism that was possibly in place before, I found, is suddenly gone. So the one thing I would want you to get from this video is, if you're going through divorce, if you're struggling, if you're feeling this sense of loss and abandonment and grief, is the first thing that I did was to put in place every day a regimented fitness plan. That involves like jogging, free weights, swimming, cardio, yoga. I mean, I'm not saying do all these at the same time, but certainly something that would take me out of my head for at least 45 minutes and an hour. And I've been a vegan now for almost 10 years, and I'm not advocating that everybody that watches this channel needs to be vegan or follows a plant-based diet. There's huge benefits for me. On a very quick note, I do it for the animals, I do it for the planet, and the health benefits for me is almost secondary. But again, watching how you eat, watching that you don't give into drinking too much alcohol, eating the junk food, whether you do take recreational drugs. I know it's still a big thing in the film industry. I know that there are lots of mechanisms to keep one's self aligned and at the top of your game potentially. So that's one of the things that, you know, I'll again talk about in more detail in another video. But if you can, cut out any recreational drugs, cut out drinking excessive alcohol, really poor diet and poor food, and almost like immediately put something in place that's going to support you in a support you physically as much as possible. That straight away was one of the biggest benefits that I could have done for myself, because with everything else that was going on emotionally, physically and mentally, the fact that I still had a point in each day that I was caring for myself on the physical plane and on the health plane really actually slowly but surely helped me get my sleep pattern back, helped me get some clarity, and helped me ultimately deal with all the plans and all the logistic next steps that needed to happen to deal with the divorce. And that is one of the main things I want to suggest from this video, that if you are going through that right now, is if you can put something in place. You may have had something in place already. That's another thing, that suddenly when your world is turned upside down and you don't know what is happening, that the things that you were doing that were supporting you tend to slip away because you become so driven and so focused on sorting other things out. But if you can fundamentally keep that in place, put something in place that can support you physically and mentally. And sleep is one of the biggest benefits to your health more than anything. It's the foundation of everything. If you're getting poor sleep or you're struggling to sleep, then everything else suffers. I know a lot of people talk about this, and there's a lot of videos out there about getting great sleep, but ask yourself, how is your sleep? How would you rate it from 1 to 10? Where are you at on that scale? Are you getting 7 to 8 hours sleep a night? And one of the biggest, quickest tips I could give is don't eat too late. Don't drink alcohol before sleep. Try eat your dinner around 6 or 7 and get yourself in a cool room in that bed before midnight. I mean, I'm in bed by 10 p.m, some nights 9 a.m. because I am an early riser. But if you can get that 7 and 8 hours of good REM sleep in, I know it's going to be tricky, particularly as you're going through this time where your mind and your body are going to be disconnected because of what's going on, but that will slowly but surely benefit everything. And I hope that's been of value in this video, to talk about the physical and mental side of supporting yourself as you're going through divorce. And I really just want to acknowledge you, if you've got this far watching this video, for thinking about yourself, caring about yourself. Again, the statistic that I really don't like to put out there about men, you know, men over 40, 45, the biggest killer in the UK is still men committing suicide. And I know I've gone from this to that, and I'm not suggesting that anyone that's watching this is having those thoughts, but when you get to that point where your brain and mentally and physically you're just literally just smacked in the face and taken out. I do know, and I've spoke to men that have gone through this before, that thought does arise. And let's look at the statistic. It's a very, very disturbing one. And so support yourself, guys. Look out for yourself. Get a support mechanism in place as much as possible. Again, I talked a bit about that in the first long video where I talked about this new video format that I'm doing about mastering your midlife morning message. So look after yourself, guys, physically, mentally. Put something in place as soon as you possibly can. That would be the biggest support that I would give in this video. I really appreciate you watching if you've got to this stage. I'm looking forward to recording more videos about this for filmmakers, content creators who are struggling, who have lost their creative mojo, who are going through divorce, who are out of fitness in terms of alignment, but also certainly if you've got habits, bad habits in your life that are just throwing you off kilter. So love yourself, love movies, it will love you back, guys. Thanks for watching, fellow filmmakers. And in this, check out this next video where I'm going to talk particularly about the financial aspects of divorce and how that impacts you, and putting things in place that can support you moving forward. Bye for now.